Hello, it's Brian Smart, and I really am out and about this time. I'm in Portsmouth, and we're going to be looking back over 2020 when we actually managed to get abroad, starting off in Spain and over to Brian in Benicàssim. Welcome to Benicàssim from the Maythorn Monthly. I don't know if you can see those girls just walking past me, but they're heading down to the fiesta with their paella pan. Everybody's going to be cooking paella on the streets. Seems to me a funny time of year to have a fiesta, but there's one here, so we've come to see it. But first, a couple of weeks ago, the coast of Spain between Valencia and Barcelona was completely wrecked by storms. There was a state of emergency, and it was the worst weather we've ever seen in this area. We've been watching it. I have to admit, we hid in the apartment for a few days, but we eventually ventured out and captured some of the damage. So we'll be looking at that in this month's video.
This is an overview of the area we're going to show you in this video. From left to right, there's the Mediterranean Sea, the beach, a concrete path, a lawned area, and then there are road systems leading into the apartment blocks. We ventured out onto that same piece of land you were just looking at during the second or third day of the storm, and this is what it looked like then. We'd been watching the waves from our balcony. They were extremely high and they were crashing over onto the beach. And when we finally got down there, we could see some of the devastation. The actual rubbish had been washed up by the sea, and the sea was still running down the paths and into the road system by the roundabouts. We ventured out again a couple of days later when the sun was starting to break through the clouds and the place was getting a bit lighter, just to see how much debris was still lying around. The amazing thing is just how many pebbles from the beach were inland a bit. Seaweed we'd seen before because the local council seemed to collect that anyway and take it away, but they've got an even bigger job on their hands now. At some point they're going to have to come and move all these stones, and because they're so scattered that won't be an easy job, probably going to be a manual task. One of our regular haunts is the Didota campsite, and I'm going to let you hear my reactions as we walked up towards Didota.
Well, I don't think we can walk in there. This was coffee and cake in the flooded Didota. There we go.
During this visit we also found out why we'd seen dozens of motor caravans parked up round Mercadona. It's because they had to be cleared in an emergency situation where the sea crashed through the wall and flooded the Didota campsite. Several feet deep in water apparently. Everybody was moved off and there are now lots of repairs to do.
This is a 10-day fiesta in Benicàssim that takes place every January, and we had no idea about it up to now. I think this will be going in our diaries again for next year. It's lovely here. So we're in Portsmouth to get a tenant for a flat that I have here, and we're allowed to do that because landlords are allowed to invite tenants in and let them view, as are people selling their bungalows, which we're doing as well. But we've come 250 miles to Portsmouth to do this. You've just been looking at lovely paella in Spain, which is something we were hoping to go back for this year. We had made a diary entry saying must go again in January 2021. We didn't know what was going to happen. And of course, January 2020, there was still a lot more clearing up to do after the storms.
This is the Kibu campsite. As you can see, all the outside area has been trashed, as is fairly typical of the scenes we're bringing you. It's been covered in pebbles from the beach. They were just chucked everywhere, and that campsite became unusable. There didn't seem to be any recovery work going on there. Across the way in Didota, though, a lot more organised. Some of the campers themselves were helping clear up. A digger was in place. It was digging out and removing all the stones along the what was the sea wall. So you can see a long pile of stones where it's been chucking them back to the beach. And in the meantime, our superhero is just playing in the waves, although this is a brave act in itself because the water is absolutely freezing in January.
The flat here has a really big living room, and you've already seen the balcony view from when we started. I made a little advert about the flat, which we put on Rightmove and other portals. I'm going to show you that, and then after that you're going to be exploded. Well, you're going to be frightened by the titles, because every year when I start the Maythorn Monthly series, I decided to develop new titles. And I was messing about a bit in January last year, and I kind of got carried away with the special effects. Apologies for that, but first, here's the advert for this flat. Not very far from the flat I've come down here to work on is Eastney Beach. So we took our exercise in this area, and as you can see, it's a big wide beach with plenty of room for everyone, and everybody comes down here with their dogs, and I think you might notice that the dogs have more fun than the humans do, and of course they like to go in the sea and get wet as well. So a fun place for humans and dogs at Eastney Beach. And a little further along, we managed to park at Langstone Harbour Viewpoint. We found free parking, by the way, for all these little beaches. And at Langstone Harbour, you can walk along to the area known as Milton Common, and this has several big lakes. I'd seen the frog lake on the map, so I'd actually driven to this area to see if I could see some frogs, but they weren't in evidence. Didn't know that a bit further along there was Swan Lake, which I thought was a ballet, but it turns out to be a real place, and there were real swans here as well. So this is an area not only for frogs and for swans, but there's a lot of ducks that fly around and land on the sea en masse, and there's also, of course, the usual humans and dogs and cyclists and other such things, and a nice wide promenade for the people to walk and cycle along. There's also a place to stop which is very comfortable and relaxing. It's the People's Memorial, which, as you can see here, is very nicely done. Lights, camera, action. Sorry, I wasn't ready then. I was getting involved in Eastney Beach. I'm going to hand over to Brian now, that's me by the way, the other one in Bulgaria, Oresh. Welcome to Oresh, Bulgaria. We don't just come here in the summer, we do come here in the winter too, and as long as we're not snowed in, we're fine. We can still get about and mix with the community and go in the coffee shop down below for some coffee, cappuccino, whatever, and some good local company. Anyway, back down in Svistov and opposite my hotel, there's this pub, the Trumpet, it's called. In the summer it was far too busy, lots of tables outside, but in the winter I've taken advantage of being quieter, found a black cat to stroke, found a pub that actually likes cats, it says so on a poster on the wall, and found some very good food, the Trumpet. Cats and coffee are two of my favourite subjects, and in Svistov there's plenty of coffee available on the streets, not just from the machines that appear every 100 yards, but from these Lavazza coffee points. These are actually little shop units that are full of machines,
dispensing coffee and snacks. Unfortunately, the coffee is always in the native language. I don't understand what types of coffee are on sale. But luckily, I found a machine that was a great help to me. It allows you to switch languages, so if you watch the screen, you'll see me flipping through until I find English. Then you can have a look at the menu. You've got a picture of the coffee. Even if your language isn't here, you could probably recognize what you want. You make a selection, and then it starts brewing it for you. So we'll pick the choc. It's 60 statinki for that, but if you choose the Lavazza brand, it's more expensive, so that's 80 statinki. I don't mind, I paid the extra 20 stinkies.
So we're reviewing last year's videos when we were allowed to go places. As I said, in January we were in Spain, and we went to a place very much like this one behind me. This is actually a harbour at the Hayling ferry on the Portsmouth side before it goes over to Hayling Island. But we also went to Tarragona. Now, the reason for going to Tarragona is that we have a flat at Marina d'Or, but generally fly into Barcelona in the evening, and we can't get a train down to the resort. So we stay over somewhere near Barcelona. Tarragona's near enough. It's a lovely place, and there's a drone flying overhead. It's the same drone as I've got, so this is obviously the place to fly a drone. Anyway, let's go back to Spain, and in particular Tarragona. So going back on the videos over 2020, seems like a long time ago. Well, it's nearly a year for the bit we're looking at now. I started what I call country jumping, in that I went to several countries, in Spain in January, in Bulgaria in February and March, and for the whole of the rest of the year in Britain, but that's another story. And so country jumping is something that I decided to do instead of splitting the features out and saying, here's the bit from Spain, here. I just went from one country to another, and it was fairly seamless and it seemed to work. The other thing I tried doing, which you'll see in a moment, is getting the titles, making them less explosive anyway, but getting the titles to show what's coming up in the programme of the month. And so little previews at the beginning like this.
Down at Marina Door, if you go down on the beach as the sun is rising over the sea, you'll see diggers and other workers out and about harvesting the seaweed. There's always a lot of seaweed coming up on the beach, and they don't leave it there. It has a mighty good purpose. Apparently you can use seaweed in the making of various chemical treatments, of medicines, and even in the manufacture of paper. So these piles of seaweed don't stay here for long, except perhaps after the storms that we had in January, where they had more things on their mind than just the seaweed.
So this is Varna on the Black Sea coast, and I'm on the hidden beach. It's hidden because it's so difficult to get to. You have to come down a steep cliff edge from where the hotels are to find this beach. Now, it's absolutely deserted today, but I'm not sure if that's because it's winter or because not many people find their way down here. But it's certainly worth it. If you want a peaceful meditation spot, this would be it.
So we've done Spain, we've done Bulgaria. Let's come back and look across the water from Birkenhead to Liverpool. That's the Anglican Cathedral, and it's one of the best views you'll get of it, because if you go into Liverpool now and try and see the cathedral, it's hidden by a lot of housing. A few years ago this wasn't true, but all this housing has sprung up in the last, say, 10 years. The cathedral is on the edge of the Baltic Triangle, and we're due to get more housing there, as Liverpool is an investment hotspot. It's one of the best in the country at the moment, and the Baltic Triangle is being developed with lots of new flats and shops and general leisure areas of the kind that you've seen elsewhere in the country. Back here in Swistov on a Sunday now, the Sunday market, and one of the things we like about Bulgaria is the quality of the food here, all the fresh meat and the wonderful recipes and stews that they make, and the fresh produce that's available just about everywhere. Definitely worth coming to one of these markets and picking up some of the local produce. It really is tasty.
So let's have another bit of country hopping, and something to notice on this one is that I am doing pieces like this, talking to the camera, in 3 different countries, and guess which country had loads of wind noise, so you could hardly hear me. So welcome to the Maythorn Monthly. We're here in Spain and at Tarragona Port, and today we're going to have a look around Tarragona. It's got a historic part, and it's got this port with the big ocean liners and privately owned yachts, and a smaller marina which we also explore with some more average sized boats that you might one day be able to afford if you won the lottery. So this is Tarragona, and this is Oris, Bulgaria. In the winter, our house on the hill has this view, so we'll be wandering around Bulgaria in this month's Maythorn Monthly. So back here in North Wales in the UK, I'm in our little village. I'm standing on a disused railway line. Hasn't been a train through here since the 1960s, and now we've got no buses either because they're running a Sunday service, and we don't have any buses on a Sunday, so now we haven't got any all week. So let's now go up to Merseyside, where they're faring a little better for public transport, because this month we're visiting Liverpool and Birkenhead. This impressive arch is the entrance to Liverpool's Chinatown. Lots of the buildings are China influenced, and also the street names unusually are also in Chinese. Last week, when I was passing Camel Laird shipyard in Birkenhead, I spotted Sir David Attenborough. Well, the ship named after him anyway. It's a fascinating area with lots of shipbuilding going on. They say that this industry's died, but it doesn't look like it to me. And as I trekked through my streets to my next venue in Birkenhead, I saw a couple who had obviously come out at New Year's Eve to watch the fireworks over the river and forgotten to go back in. I was heading for Birkenhead Priory, and there they were. Anyway, Birkenhead Priory, it's this tranquil haven in an industrial area because it's right next door to the Camel Laird shipyard, and just further around there's various industrial buildings, and then you hit the Woodside ferry where the ferry goes across the Mersey. So a tranquil spot to relax. There's a couple of benches here, you can sit here and have a rest. When you get to Woodside, you'll see this big old battered U-boat, and it is in fact a tourist attraction called the U-boat story. It's not something that ever interested me, but it's certainly quite an obstacle in the skyline of Birkenhead. So as I kind of hinted, all the stuff that I filmed was between January and March, because we came back from Bulgaria in March and it was ultra lockdown. But I'm allowed to wander around a little bit because of my property job and the fact that we're allowed to get properties ready and to house people. I'm just thinking about this one behind me here. I love this area, so we couldn't really afford to live in a flat round here, but what about this? Wonder how much that is.
Who'd have believed it? In Britain it's horrible, it's raining, it's windy, things are getting wrecked, and here in Bulgaria on the beach at Varna it's 11 o'clock in the morning here, which means back at home it's 9 a.m. and I'm drinking beer. Now that isn't me at all. I criticise people who drink beer before midday, but sometimes you just have to. So anyway, we're going to have a look around Varna today, and I've already been and looked around some of the beach areas, and there's all sorts of relics of the war, I would say. No doubt I'll find out more about that. Varna also has a dolphinarium, it has an aquarium, it has a zoo, and it has a fantastic city centre. So we've got lots to see here, and I'm sure that over the next few months we'll show you different aspects of Varna on the Black Sea coast. So that was Primorski Park and the Sea Garden at Varna, complete with the live musician, and he plays through the night as well outside the restaurants. And so back to Orisha, a quick check up there. The restaurant that was being rebuilt, it's now got its roof on, and we can go upstairs and look at the terrace and the little tower from which you can see across the rest of the village. And the Heritage Centre just down the way from there, that's all been finished as well. Last time we showed it to you, it was covered in scaffolding. So it's a nice bright modern building, and it's got a fountain outside, although personally I've never seen that working yet. I believe it does sometimes give out some water. I have a viewer on YouTube who told me after watching my Bulgaria videos that he bought a house in Bulgaria and never been to see it. He also told me that it was in the village of Bulgarsko Slivovo, so I decided to go and have a look at that village. And we chose a good time because there was something happening in the town square. So as you come into the village from the south, you come down a hill, the petrol station on the left, and you get an idea of the kind of houses are in the village. Now I don't know which one this person has bought, and obviously they'll have their own pictures from
the estate agent or whoever they bought it from. But have a look at this, because as we came into the village it was dusk, and that was very good because we arrived at the town square just as they put the lights on and just as some players were starting to perform. So we were still using some of the video footage that I took in Europe from the first quarter of the year, and I'm still going to be showing you some of that as the programme progresses today. But I think we might be worth having a look around here. This is a little area by the Hayling ferry where you cross to Hayling Island. There's lots of interesting boats here, and I think you should have a look around. So at last we're able to bring you a couple of new places to look at. This is beautiful. It's March, the sun's out, it's a bit hazy, and it's 13 degrees, but it feels great. And it's the first time I had any sun on my skin for a long time.
That's the thing with these whole railway lines, it's part of the adventure.
Here's just a little novelty feature that I knocked up last year, taking the mickey out of Britain's lost railways. There's this guy on a TV series who walks Britain's lost railways, so I found one that he could possibly walk.
That's what I was looking for. I'm quite excited to be coming across it. Oh my goodness me. Look at that lost railways. This is more like lost worlds.
All aboard the Garden Railway. The starter set offers a wide range of possibilities for indoors and outdoors. Unpack, assemble, and off you go. The many possible variations encourage children's dexterity and arouse their curiosity and creativity.
But a year ago I was preparing for who knew what, because we'd never had a lockdown before and we certainly didn't know it was going to last as long as it did. But it was obvious that we weren't going to be able to travel, so I decided to put together a home studio. Studio is something that you just throw together really. A proper studio has got all soundproofing and is built for the purpose, but you can put together a home studio. People do it in their bedrooms, and I decided to turn one of our spare rooms into my place to work. Now, Mihalsi has some wartime relics, but the Aero L-29 Delphin trainer jet in the middle of the dual carriageway is actually a monument to two pilots who were from the village and died in an accident in October 1990. It looks like English people have got a foothold in the village too, especially if you want your garden doing.
Our budget for hotel rooms in Bulgaria is generally £10 to £15 a night. But tonight we splashed out, and we've got 2 days in this hotel that are costing us £25 a night. But we've got this glorious bedroom here with a double bed. It's got air conditioning over the bed and a TV. And through here, this is fairly typical, I know, but we've got the wardrobe here and the bathroom here. And if you actually shut off the bathroom, you've now got the bedroom and the bathroom as a self-contained thing. Now there is another room, here's what the £25's costing for. There's another room beyond here, and with this door open you've got privacy in the bedroom and bathroom area, and you can have other people with you who are through here. Let's go through here. You have seen the bathroom, haven't you? It's got almost a wet room. It's got a ridge to stop the water running too far out, and also it's got a glass panel to stop some splashing onto the toilet, so they should all do that really. And then you get this extra room, and again the light is going to be all on for filming because loads of light coming in. This is a dual aspect room. It's got a couch and it's got a desk, it's got another TV on the wall, it's got air conditioning separately in here too. So we've got 2 rooms for our price of £25. Not only that, but out there, and the reason we've got so much light, is the Black Sea. This is a £25 room in Bulgaria.
We didn't realise until we stepped out of the hotel and across the road that in front of us had been this outdoor swimming pool. It's slightly lower down than road level. Is this the HMS Victory? No, it's a rather elaborate beach bar, and it was displaying the Stella sign, so it can't be that bad. As you can see from the aerial pictures, the village where I live is surrounded by open countryside, and if you follow me on a walk, then we go through the village and out into the open country. The village itself shows that there's not much open. There's obviously been no church services lately. There has been a lot of work done in people's gardens because you can get deliveries of materials and you can get a skip wagon to come and take away rubbish. Our school isn't one of the hubs that's being used, so the staff car park is empty. There's been a lot of new houses built in the village over the last few years, but the sales office is currently closed and the building sites are currently suspended, although that may return soon. There are 2 pubs in the village, and the pub car parks of course are empty. That's our walk around the village. To get any other kind of walking going on without seeing the same places every day, we have to go out in the country. Lots of country lanes, views across the fields, and the lanes also feature a number of large houses and several farms, but you're not likely to see many people apart from a few other walkers and a few farm animals in the fields. The other thing we're allowed to do is shopping for essential items, so we can go down to the local shops at Westminster Park. There's a co-op there, and there's a butcher's and a fishmonger's, and you will see queues to all these shops. If you go into the city centre of Chester, you can go to Tesco. There's a queue out of their Frodsham Square branch right up Frodsham Street, with people still joining at the far end, and similar queues at other shops in the city. One of the things the Maythorn Monthly used to do regularly was a feature on transport, trains and boats and planes and stuff like that. They always forget buses, but I quite like buses too. But I was standing by the River Danube one day. That sounds very posh, doesn't it? But it goes through Svishtov, and it looks like this. They call this the Blue Danube. It isn't quite so blue at this point in Bulgaria. This is Svishtov. Across the river from here is Romania, and just behind me and over there in the distance is the ferry terminal on the Romania side. We have actually shown you the docks at Swishdorf before, but I suppose it wouldn't hurt to have another look. I am in the business of trains and boats and planes, so on the boat side I can tell you that every 3 hours, the schedule says, a boat goes across to Romania. However, the locals tell me it doesn't bother going until it's full or nearly full, so you may have to wait longer than the timetable says. I've never tried it, but that's all I can tell you about that for now. But there is a bus service into Swishdorf. There's a bus service between Swishdorf and Orish. There's a daily bus to Varna from Swishdorf. There are regular buses to Veliko Tarnovo, the old capital. So yes, the buses run well in Bulgaria.
There's also a passenger service several times a day from Levski to Swishdorf. It goes through Orish Station. You'll see Orish Station here with its gravel and its maintenance train. But this is what a real passenger train looks like in Bulgaria. Well, it's one of the types. This one's exceptionally clean. It's got no graffiti on it, which is surprising. And it pulls into the station master comes out, there's an exchange of passengers, and then it moves off again. Spotted this train near Pavlikeni at a level crossing on its way to Varna. That's 2 carriages and graffiti on them too, quite right.
So welcome to the Maythorn Monthly. I'm down by the River Mersey on the Wirral, and we're at Wallasey, very near to Vale Park. We'll be looking at Vale Park another time, but for now we're going to join all the other walkers and cyclists and watch the boats go by on the river. Back to Bulgaria now, and in the district of Shumen, just outside the town centre of Shumen, there's some parkland and forestry, and there's a fortress, and there's, did I mention the brewery? Yes, a Carlsberg sign will give you the clue. Also, it's a nice area to go wandering round. It's great for wildlife. The birds are well looked after. They've been given some really nicely painted nest boxes, and there's also a local bear. Don't believe me? Have a look at this. They've built it a cave as well. So one of the things that we're hoping will happen soon is the end of this lockdown. One of the reasons for me wanting that is because of this. I haven't had a haircut again, and it was the same last year, just before the summer. I actually got a haircut when the barbers opened in the summer, but just before that I looked like this. So welcome to the Maythorn Monthly. We're outdoors again in the true British summer weather. Could rain any minute. Later in the programme we've got some Australian winter, which looks a lot better than the British summer. I'm not going to mention my hair. One or two people have contacted me and said, what is that bush on your head? But no, let's not talk about that. I promise by September I will get it sorted and get it cut. So we're going to go back to Bulgaria. That was the last trip we made, and we stayed in a hotel in March in the Shumen district of Bulgaria. It was called the Park Hotel. It wasn't one that we were over impressed with, because we paid this sort of top price, sort of £25 a night, which is a lot for a hotel in Bulgaria. And Booking.com said that it spoke our language, didn't speak English when we got there. The guy on the reception was German. Well, he may not have been German, but he only spoke German. He couldn't work the card machine, so he fumbled and tried several times, and in the end we got the transaction through in 2 bits that hopefully added up to the right total. And I'm going to show you what happened next. We had a room with a balcony. We were looking forward to going out in the morning on the balcony to enjoy the view of the forest nearby, only opened the curtains in the morning, there's a man on our balcony, and there the story unfolded, as you can see. And they were working on all the balconies along our floor and on the roof. And then when we finally got packed and out, we could see that they were working on the whole hotel. So a bit of a letdown, really. They shouldn't really be charging full price for a hotel that's undergoing works, but there we are. We were flying home that day, so we couldn't do much about it. Something you may have noticed about the videos I was producing last year is that by halfway through the year I'd run out of material from the other countries I'd filmed in, and we were doing quite a lot in the same old places in the locality. And living on the border between England and Wales meant our locality was in both countries. We had to keep an eye on the rules for lockdown in each of the separate countries, because they couldn't possibly have joined up and organised it together as one. We did manage to find some other footage to bring to YouTube, and that was courtesy of our family down under. I dropped them a load of hints about sending me up some video of Australia, and eventually I did actually get some. They live in a house that's right by a place they call The Cut, which you'll see here. There's quite a bit of wildlife, but one of the things it does have is dolphins. So they can walk out of their house and within a few minutes be down by the cut and watching the dolphins swimming about and enjoying themselves. So that was a bit of footage we couldn't actually have got anywhere in Britain, and as far as I know, I couldn't have got it in Spain or Bulgaria probably either. So thank you to the family down in Western Australia, who, by the way, haven't really had much in the way of COVID. They did have a lockdown about a month ago when they had one case. So they locked down for 5 days just to make sure there weren't any more, then opened up again. They are so lucky. Here's a part of the world I've never been to on the Maythorn Monthly before. It's Bidston Hill, and it's right in the middle of the peninsula, so you got views out both ways, to across the Mersey and across the Dee. And you've got some interesting things up here like the Bidston Observatory, the windmill and the lighthouse. So how about that for a day out? And luckily today the weather is fine. Welcome to the October edition of Maythorn Monthly, and this autumn we're in Derbyshire, and this is Manor Park at Glossop. We'll have a look around Glossop later on, and also a quick look at the disused railway line. We've got to try and fill our transport spot with something, so we'll look at some transport that hasn't run since the 60s, disused railway line near Buxton. That's all happening later in this edition of the Maythorn Monthly. Well, we're in the National Welsh lockdown in Wales, and I'm back walking our disused railway line as we're not allowed to go outside the village for our exercise. And the English national lockdown is about to begin. This month we got rid of 2 of our cars that we've had for a couple of years, and we now share a car, Ruth and I. And we've got some video from Llandudno, where we were before the lockdown began. Had a weekend down there, it was very nice. And let's first take a look at the West Shore. The West Shore is the less busy part of Llandudno, and the parking restrictions are minimal. You can generally find yourself an on-street parking space, and there's no charges around here. There's plenty of places to walk. There's a large beach area, not many people on it, and this is a great place for people to come and push their pushchairs, walk their dogs, even if their dogs prefer to swim, and to go to some refreshments when there isn't a national lockdown. These pictures, of course, were taken before that, and so you'll see a cafe in operation as normal. Well, that's pretty much all I've got for you. We're going to end up down the North Wales coast because that's one of the places we're allowed to go for most of last autumn, with a few exceptions. And we came across a lift in a hotel we stayed in that gave me a bit of a fright, because I've been in the radio business years ago for about 20 years. I then got an equity card, I think it was. It's a union card that allows you to do radio adverts and various other things. And one of the things I did was voices in lifts. Not something you hear much of or take much notice of, but we got into this lift in our hotel and I kind of recognised the voice. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to leave you with Llandudno and other places down the coast. I'm going to go and get my drone out now, and we'll perhaps go and fly it around the flat, which is how we managed to get to Portsmouth in the first place. And the area I've been in today is where we've come for a walk, and it's less than 2 miles from our flat. So I'm sure that's all okay. Hope you enjoyed all these old clips. See you next month.
Doors closing. Lift going down.
Lift going up. Lift going down. Next lift up. Next lift down.
Ground floor.
Press alarm button for 5 seconds to activate in-lift automatic telephone. Please stay calm. Welcome to the Maythorn Monthly from Ross-on-Sea. It's extremely windy and wintry today, and the drone is hopping about like anything, but luckily I've just flown it over the water and brought it back without it getting drowned. So we shall press on with our little tour of the North Wales coast. See you soon.
Colwyn Bay used to have a pier, but there's not much of it left now, and judging by the works that are going on, it's going to be removed completely. That's just a guess. I'll be going back along the coast a little bit to Rhos-on-Sea, where I was talking to you from before. That's where all the boats were. Rhos is also the home to the smallest church in the British Isles. If you're just driving through Rhos-on-Sea, you probably miss this church. You'll notice the wind farms out at sea. They're all along the North Wales coast, and there's a story behind that and the reason why they're so close in. But that's for another day. Now, this church, it's hidden from the road because it's sunken down at the beach level. It's a tiny little church. It will hold 6 people, but of course during the COVID pandemic there haven't been any meetings, because if you look inside it's so tiny that you couldn't possibly get 6 people in there safely. And I decided to demonstrate to you just how small this building is by standing by it, and I'm 6 foot tall, so there it is, the smallest church in the British Isles. The reason we've spent so much time down the North Wales coast this last month or two is the English lockdown. It's been difficult to go anywhere in England, or even to be allowed to cross the border from Wales into England, and we just live on the border. So Llandudno has got a lot going on for it in the winter, because people live here. It's not just a resort, there's a community as well. There's the pier, which keeps going, and then there's the Palladium Theatre. As you can see from our pictures, it's actually a Wetherspoons. And every time we've come and stayed in Llandudno, we've been in a different hotel every time, but we've always come and had our breakfast at the Palladium. It was a theatre, as I said, and you can still see where the circle and the upper circle were. In fact, if you use the gents or ladies, depending who you are, you'll know that Wetherspoons generally like you to go upstairs or downstairs for these facilities, so you go up to the circle in this particular venue. While we're showing you the pier at night, a couple of little stories which have come about simply because of the pandemic situation. First of all, as you walk down the pier, you get to pay for the smallest items, even a cup of coffee, with a contactless card. Now, I'm sure that these places used to only take cash, which has always annoyed me because I don't really carry cash if I can help it. So now everyone's able to take contactless cards. Amazing, just because you've been advised not to handle the coins. Well, guess what? We're down the North Wales coast and I'm sitting in the car, a bit of a chicken. I don't feel like going outside. It's certainly not the weather for flying drones, so we won't be doing that. Luckily, I did take some earlier in the month, or rather, actually we're in December, aren't we? So it was obviously in November now. This is the December weather, and well, let me show you. I'm going to pick up the camera and point it over that way. It's got one of these modes on where it follows my face. So I've just opened the window and I'm pointing the camera out, and that's what the sea is looking like today, so you can probably guess it's rather windy and cold here.
So we end the Maythorn Monthly series, which has run for nearly 3 years, with me sitting in a car with the pouring rain outside and the gale force winds, the sea thrashing the shoreline here in Llandudno. And it's not always like this, as you know, because we've been showing you a lot of it over the last few months. Ruth's trying to contact Australia on her phone, sitting next to me, and we're going to leave you with some pictures, and they're not taken here. There was somebody actually down on the shoreline there in all this weather trying to get pictures close up of the waves, rather him than me. But as it starts to turn to hail, I'm going to say goodbye for this year, have a good Christmas, and leave you with some shots that we took last night when we went into our favourite Bengal Dynasty Indian restaurant and had a meal, and also enjoyed the Christmas lights around the town of Llandudno. Merry Christmas, see you next year.